Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be using Open-Meteo API to fetch weather data and display it in SwiftUI. We're going to make a network call, decode JSON, and show the current temperature and wind speed. Let's go ahead and dive on in. So we are going to be using the Open-Meteo. I'm just going to drag this onto our screen here. So this is open-meteo.com, but if you do want to add in any other API keys, this will be applicable, but I'm kind of just using this as an example for this basic build. And you can see on the website here, we do have some documentation. Pretty much any API that you're going to be using will have the documentation as well as different ways to use it. We also have our forecast and current, last 10 days, and historical data, which is all built in this JSON API format. So we're going to be using this one today. Alrighty, so I'm going to just kind of keep this in the background here because we'll be using it later. And I'm going to start a new Xcode project, but if you want to add it to your existing one, please feel free to do so. And I'm just going to call this one API example open-meteo SwiftUI language Swift. Great. Alrighty, in content view, we're going to add some state properties in order to store the temperature and the wind speed. So I'm going to go here under our structure and we'll say at state, create a private var, we'll say temperature, and this will be a double. And we're also going to create another state, private var, and we'll say wind speed. Wind speed with a capital S here. Speed, which will also be a double. Next, we'll set up the data model to match the JSON structure of the API response. So Open-Meteo's JSON response provides the temperature and the wind speed under the current section. So let's add two structs, weather data to hold main data and current weather to hold the temperature _2m and wind _speed _10m fields. So if we see here, we're going to be adding all of those. All right, so let's go ahead and add those structs. So I'm going to do them under my import UI, and I'm going to say struct. I'm going to say weather data. And let's go ahead and say let current weather. And we'll also create a current weather struct. So I'm going to say struct current weather, and we'll have this be codable. And we'll say let temperature, I believe it's _2m. Let's double check. Yep, we can even copy and paste those if you want. You know, let's do that just so we don't make any mistakes. Okay, and we'll say this is a double. And we'll also grab the wind speed. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste so I don't make any spelling mistakes. I'll say let, and that will also be a double. Yeah, both of those are decimal values, so both would be a double. Let's actually go back to our weather data, and we can also make this codable as well. And by conforming to Codable, these structs will allow us to decode the JSON response into Swift-friendly types, which we'll use to display the weather data. Now, let's write a function to fetch weather data asynchronously. We'll use Swift's URLSession to handle the network request and decode the response. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our content view here, and right before the very end, we're going to go ahead and create a function, and we'll create one that's maybe called fetch weather. We don't need anything within the parameters, but we're actually going to say async. We're going to add a brace here and say let URL string equals, and then this is where we're going to include that URL, which is actually this one right here. If we click on it, man, that doesn't look like anything to us, but we can copy and paste it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select it here. I'm going to copy. I'm going to paste. And then we're going to say guard let URL equals URL with all capitals. And then we'll say string URL string, and then we'll add our else, and then we'll just add a brace and we'll say return. All right, let's go ahead and add a do, and we're gonna add a brace here, and we're gonna say let data, comma, space, underscore, equals try a wait, URL session dot shared dot data from URL. So I'll say data, I'm gonna type this out, from URL. Data, and we'll say from URL, all in lowercase there. We'll say let decoded data equal try JSON decoder, add our brackets here, dot decode, and then we're going to do weather data dot self, comma, from, reference our data there. All right, we need to do a couple more things. We need to add a dispatch queue main async, and then we also have to do our catch. So let's do dispatch queue dot main dot async. We'll add our brace here, and we'll say self dot temperature equals decoded data dot current dot temperature to m, and we'll also do that for the wind speed. So self dot wind speed equals decoded data dot current dot wind speed 10m. Alrighty, let's go ahead and exit this brace here, and we'll have to exit the second one as well. So we're going to be outside of our do, and now we'll include the catch brace here, and we'll say print error fetching weather data, and then we'll interpolate that error here. Perfecto. I'm just going to clean up my code just ever so slightly. All right, so in this function, we form the API request URL with the specific data we want, temperature 2m and wind speed 10m. Then we decode the JSON response and update our temperature and wind speed state variables. All right, now let's update our UI to display the weather data. In SwiftUI, we can use the text views to show temperatures and wind speed. We can also wrap it up in a navigation view for a cleaner interface. So we're going to scroll back up here, and within our VStack, right before it, we're going to go ahead and add a navigation view. We're going to add a brace. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the end of our VStack, and we're going to add another brace here. So that should kind of put everything within that navigation view. You can always double click on the brace to see, where it kind of starts and ends. All right, in our VStack, we're going to get rid of our hello world here. We're going to add our own things, and we can add some text. I'll say maybe current weather. We can add font. Maybe we'll set this to be, I don't know, large title. We can add some padding as well. All right, and let's now add an if let statement for our temperature, and we'll add another one for our wind speed. So we'll say if let temperature equals temperature. Add a brace here, and we'll say text temperature, and then we can interpolate that temp. And I assume it's in Celsius. I actually didn't check. If it's in Fahrenheit, let's go ahead and we can look at that later. But for now, I'm just going to add C or perhaps even Celsius if that makes a little bit more sense for you. And let's also set this to have a font. So the font, maybe we do title 2. Alrighty, and we'll create another if let statement. So we'll say if let. If you want to copy and paste this one, feel free to do so. Wind speed equals wind speed. We're pretty much going to be doing the exact same thing here. Text wind speed think it's wind speed like that actually. And then we'll interpolate our wind speed value, and I believe that's kilometers per hour, so km/h. Alrighty, now under our VStack we can move our padding up. So I'm just gonna Command X, Command V there, and then we're going to add a dot task, and we're going to say await fetch weather. We can also add a navigation title here. So if we go to the end of our navigation stack, we actually go within it, do dot navigation title. We'll call that weather. So here we use optional unwrapping to only show the temperature and wind speed values once they're available. The task modifier runs fetch weather as soon as the view appears, fetching data immediately. So we can see that we have a temperature of 5 degrees Celsius on the dot and wind speed at 4 kilometers. Let's go ahead and run our program in the simulator to see how it works and looks in there. Alrighty. So when the app loads, we should be able to see the current temperature and the wind speed, which we do on the screen. Each time we open this view, it will fetch the latest data from Open-Meteo. So we can see actually our API did update in the background, and now it's at 4.8 and our wind speed is at 3.6. So we can see that it is updating in real time. I think it was like 5.0 earlier, so that's pretty cool. And that's it for our weather app. In this tutorial, we covered setting up a SwiftUI project, fetching the weather data from an API, and decoding the JSON. We also displayed the data in a simple SwiftUI layout. You can do a whole lot more, obviously, and customize it to your heart's content. But I hope this gives you the confidence to work with APIs in SwiftUI. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, dream big and code even bigger. Take care, everyone.